Yes. Move on then in the agenda to approval of bids. And we do have a very critical item tonight in the history of our village, the police station GMP, or Guaranteed Maximum Price Award. Mr. Recklaus.
Thank you, Mayor. Even if you haven't been paying attention since 2010, which is when we began talking about this, I think people will notice the building next door that's in the process of being torn down. Obviously, this has been a hot topic and something that we've discussed thoroughly over the past several years. But as you mentioned, tonight we're going to be reviewing and hopefully approving a guaranteed maximum price for the new police station. This is a little bit different process than a simple bidding process, and Charles is going to be going through that. But we budgeted $27,985,000 for construction of a new police station, and I'm happy to report that we're going to be submitting a guaranteed maximum price recommendation that's slightly below that by $42,000. But we are also recommending one alternate bid that will be about $29,000 that we think is prudent at this time. But in order to get here, a lot of work was put into this. We had several meetings to get the cost below the targeted budget figure, and through the work of the design committee and our construction manager and our architects, we reduced the price by $1.8 million from what it was to get it to this level. The other thing I want to stress before we get into the details of this is, while we're just about at or slightly under budget, this budget figure contains a couple of different contingencies. It contains a $382,000 design and pricing contingency. It contains a $1.275 million construction contingency. And then in a separate account, the village has budgeted another $1.6 million as an owner's contingency. So we have roughly $3.2 million of extra money in case we have cost overruns or other unforeseen issues that arise on the side, in addition to having this project under budget. We believe that this project is going to allow us to construct a secure, operationally feasible, and aesthetically pleasing facility for our residents and for our police department. But with that, I'll turn things over to Charles, who's going to walk us through the package tonight.
Thank you. As you can see from this slide, showing kind of the placement of the new police station on the current site, but obviously significantly larger to meet the needs of the police department than the old building was. The budget of $27.985 million was established as part of the 2015 feasibility study, and that's been a target that the architects, the construction manager, as well as the staff design team that's been working on this has been working hard to make sure we're within that budget. To date, the village board has been presented with early bid packages, and $5.7 million of early bid packages have already been approved to allow Riley Construction to get a jump on the construction season and hopefully minimize winter conditions to the best extent that can be done. Already to date, some underground utility work has taken place, environmental abatement on the old building, and as you can see in the bottom right, demolition has started on the building, the old building itself. Also, some of the long lead time items for construction, such as precast and structural steel, has been awarded and in line for fabrication. So the GMP proposed and presented by Riley Construction, as Mr. Recklaus mentioned, is $42,000 under that target that we were striving for. It includes the contingencies that were described. It also includes a winter allowance for winter conditions of $150,000 in the event we need to tarp and heat the exterior of the building to continue construction. It also includes builder's risk, general liability insurance, the construction management fee, as well as the performance bond. There are 19 alternates that were pulled out from the base bid and looked at individually. These are items that, with one exception, we're not recommending including at this time. They would be evaluated by the design team and Riley Construction and the architects as we move forward with construction. Our next step, assuming the board approves the GMP tonight, is to prioritize these alternates, get timing from Riley Construction on when decisions need to be made, so that we can be ready to make decisions on these alternates, whether to include or not these at a future date. The reason we don't want to include these now is because until the building's out of the ground, we don't know what unforeseen conditions we might find on the site that we may need to use some of that construction contingency for. There is one exception that I'll highlight, and we can certainly come back and answer any questions. Item 5 is the one alternate that we are recommending that we take at this point. This is an ice and water shield over the entire pitched roof of the building. It's not normally done, but we feel it's a prudent thing to do to ensure that we have a completely watertight roof on the structure. Other alternates deal with a lot of architectural potential changes and modifications, as well as the bottom one here, 19, is a potential addition for permeable pavers. And Public Works last week submitted for a grant with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, and we would only consider that particular alternate if we were successful in getting that grant. So that alternate is for permeable pavers on the main driveway between Village Hall and the new police station, as well as permeable pavers on top of the detention vault at the back of the site. As Mr. Reckless mentioned, we did go through an extensive value engineering exercise as a team with the architects and the construction manager. We looked at 72 total items with a construction value of just under $2.8 million, and we recommended and accepted $1.8 million. They're broken down in these 4 major categories, everything from modifying the floor-to-ceiling heights to reduce construction costs, to looking at some of the electrical and mechanical systems. And to summarize, the team is recommending that the village board approve increasing those previously awarded early bid packages. 1, to authorize the village manager to enter into a guaranteed maximum price of $27,942,917 with Riley Construction. 2, we're further recommending that alternate 5, the ice and water shield on the pitched roofs, be accepted at just over $29,000, which would increase the GMP to $27,972,293. And then lastly, we are recommending that the village board provide some flexibility in authorizing the design team, subject to approval by the village manager and the finance director, to increase individual change orders. These would be from the owner's contingency, if needed, from the current $20,000 limit to $40,000. Anything over $40,000 would still require village board approval. We took this approach with the village hall. At the time, the limit was $10,000, and the board approved increasing it to $25,000. Obviously, we would like to minimize any change orders, but construction is a unique process, and there are things that come along that are often unforeseen, and sometimes waiting 2 or 3 weeks for a next board meeting or even a few days could impact the cost or could impact the construction time. So that summarizes our recommendation, and we're happy to answer any questions. Also here this evening is Police Chief Jerry Morning, Deputy Chief Nick Pecora, and Chris Seifert from Riley Construction.
Okay. Thank you, Charles. Questions from the board? Trustee Lebeds.
Thank you. Thank you for all the information. I just have a question about the ice and water shield. As someone who's not in construction, what exactly is that?
It's a material that's placed before you put the finished shingles on the roof that provides or prevents water penetration into the roof structure. and Chris Seaforth can answer in more technical detail if that's necessary.
So it doesn't change the look of it, of the design or anything. It's underneath.
Correct. It will not change the look at all.
Okay. And then it keeps ice buildup from happening and getting underneath and
Without
damming into.
boring the daylights out of everybody here. The technical is it's a stickier product than your typical roofing felt that sticks to the roof, and it has some self-sealing characteristics when they pound the nails through them. So that's why it's an improved product.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yes.
That's the only question I
Hey,
had.
Chris, if I could just follow up on that.
Yes.
Charles had mentioned that it's not normally done. Do you mean in this area? In areas where snow and ice are prevalent, or what?
It's normally done on the lower levels, but not over the entire roof.
We typically do up from the gutter line or the eave line up 6 feet. That's usually where most of the backup happens. And that's already planned for it in the base. And on very low slope areas, so those that are less than, let's say, a 412 pitch, but we have some areas that are steeper. So those areas that are all low slope and some of the design elements, those are already covered.
Okay. I'm just wondering, in the trade, is this done periodically in other buildings? It's a design choice, like we're adding it on, but are we like going to be the only building in the area with this kind of a shield?
No, we just recently completed a project where we reconfigured the roof for Deerfield Bannockburn Fire Protection District, and they elected to go this route as well. They had issues on past projects and past facilities with leaks, and they wanted belts and suspenders as well, so we make sure we did it for them there.
And you say this is a relatively new product?
No, it's not relatively new.
not
It's been
new.
done for many years.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Robin.
So it extends the life of the roof?
Doesn't necessarily extend the life of the roof. It just helps to deal with the waterproofing of the roof itself.
Okay.
The shingles themselves still have their own warranty based on the manufacturer, based on the specifications.
Okay.
Okay. Trustee Tenalia? And then
I'll,
Trustee
I'll
Glasgow.
give you the 5-cent version of that. When you build a roof, you have your plywood and your substrate that is what everything is put on top of, and then there'll be felt paper that goes down first. And then on top of that is the shingles. And every roof, every house, every garage, everything that looks like this has that. Around the perimeters, valleys, edges, gutters, anywhere that there could be backup and potential leakage from ice damming and things like that, we use ice and water shield. It's John's Mansville.
Correct.
Product's been around for 25 or 30 years. It's a really good product, exactly like Chris described. It's just so that when you pound your nails through, it seals up a little bit better. And what we're doing here is we're suggesting that that material cover the entire roof before the shingles go on, so that we don't have problems like we might have had otherwise. So it's really just, as he said, a belt and suspenders program. It won't change any other characteristics. It will not get you a better warranty. It won't do anything except prevent headaches down the road.
Okay, great.
That's all it is.
Thanks. Trustee Glasgow?
Thank you. I have a few questions. First, the roof itself, do we have a guarantee that we're going to get this sealed up? I think we've had discussions, Nick, Deputy Chief Pecora and I, with regard to making sure this is sealed before the weather comes in. Do we have guarantees that that's going to be done? And the reason I'm asking is because obviously if we end up going into cold weather and we don't have a seal on top, it's going to end up costing this village a lot more money.
So I'll ask if Chris can talk about the schedule a little bit. I did touch upon there is 150,000 as an allowance for potential winter conditions. But Chris, could you talk about the schedule?
Sure. We have obtained commitments from key elements of the structure, meaning the precast and the steel, so they deliver in certain timelines, for us to obtain a target of being completely dried in by January 3rd of this year. There might be some temporary protection over windows or over doors where we want to use those for construction access or material access, and we don't want to damage the finished products that might go in there. But the guarantee you're asking for is one that we're taking steps to accomplish. I can't predict what the weather's going to be November 1st through
I'm
January
not
1st.
asking that, but we generally have really bad weather between January and roughly the beginning of March. So I'd like to be able personally to be able to make sure that that could be sealed up so they could start work on the inside so we don't lose 2 months of work. 2 months of work equates to more time in a place where we don't want to end up spending extra rent money.
Sure, agreed, and we've taken steps with the design and worked closely with the design team so that we can build the structure independent of any activity like load-bearing masonry, which may be severely impacted by the weather, so that we can do the masonry as non-load-bearing, which allows us to continue and proceed at a cheaper cost. So we've taken those steps.
All right, I'd just like an update on that periodically as we get closer, and I would like to urge the administration to try and get some kind of guarantee from the builder that we can end up making sure that that's sealed before we get good weather, so we don't end up paying a whole bunch more money that we don't need to. I don't know whether or not to ask Mr. Reckless or Mr. Perkins, this guaranteed maximum price, how does it compare again to the maximum bid that was given with adjustment for inflation? Because we spoke about this before. I just want to make sure we remind the public that this is below what was assessed before.
This is, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Either one.
The original price that we had back in, was it 2010? That was when you adjust that upwards for inflation and you take out, this is significantly lower. I can't remember the exact percentage. I want to say, was it 10 to 15%, somewhere in that ballpark, lower adjusted for inflation from what we were getting in 2010.
I want to say it was in the 30 million range.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure that people know that we're coming in below what was previously done, in part because of all the work that's been put in by you guys and by administration. Yeah, I'm sorry.
If I could too, I mean, I think a lot of that came from the work that Trustee Tenai and Trustee Glasgow did as well, because we really reduced the size of the facility, what was projected to be needed, significantly by using existing space within Village Hall as well as the police annex as well. And so it really was a significant reduction in square footage and therefore cost.
I have one more question, and that's for our village attorney. The $40,000, I know there's a $20,000 procurement section in the code. Does the increase in the $40,000 violate the procurement code in any way if we give them authorization to do so?
No, it doesn't. Particularly under the village's home rule powers, you have the opportunity and authority to make that change.
Okay, I perused them, but I'm not as bright as you in that area, so I appreciate it. I have nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. So regard to, maybe this is for Tom Keeney, from the standpoint of the builder's risk insurance and general liability insurance, is that something that we could get through IRMA, or does that have to be separate policies?
Actually, we did talk to IRMA about that, and they told us typically that's taken on by the contractor in this case. They're the ones that are having the workers there and really should be responsible for maintaining that insurance.
So, and I assume that means that's related to the performance bond then too also?
Correct.
So, Chris, from your standpoint then, is that a cost that you go out and bid and then just pass on whatever cost there is to us then from there, or?
Those are costs that we bid and proposed when we submitted our RFP response for the construction of the construction manager, so I'm not sure where they compare to the others. That wasn't shared with me, but I'll let Charles answer that question.
So the fees, construction management fees, as well as performance bond and general liability insurance bonds, those were required as part of the submittal in response to the RFP back in February last year.
Okay.
And their fees were at or better than their competitors. And that was also not the only factor, but one of the factors that we used in ranking Riley Construction.
Yeah, and Trustee Rosenberg, I also asked IRMA if the builder's risk policy cost was reasonable, and they said yes, it's definitely within reason.
So does our insurance then have any kind of overriding coverage as far as that goes in the case of any issue that arises as a result of the?
We do. Once we have the guaranteed maximum price, I'll report that to IRMA. And then as the building is constructed, we'll be covered, to a certain amount as far as, it won't be the entire value until the building's completed and accepted, but there'll be some coverage in between.
Okay. Chris, in your opinion, the contingencies that we've allowed, the 1.5% design and pricing and the 5% construction, do you feel those are within the realm of reasonableness?
Yes.
Okay. And you'll try to adhere to those?
Yes.
I have no objection to raising the limit for the village manager and the team to approve 40,000. The only thing I would ask, and others may be interested also, if maybe along with the monthly report that we get on the cost, that we could get a list of anything that does get approved that falls into that contingency on a specific item.
Absolutely. We discussed that along the way, that would be something we'd be reporting out regularly. It has to happen because sometimes, as Mr. Perkins had mentioned, timing doesn't allow it, but we certainly be reporting out these things as they go. And if we do have time, we'll report them out in advance and seek feedback and so forth, if feasible.
And another question on that roof shield. So is that similar to like a hot membrane type roof system almost?
Similar in that some of the products are there, but it's not hot applied. It's a cold applied, peel and stick type product.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I know we unfortunately had some issues with this roof, so it's probably good that we're doing that. So I think that was all. Thank you.
Anything further from the board? Just to confirm, we'll have an opportunity to ask questions about the currently excluded alternates at some point down the road.
Yes, I can talk about that. Once we get further along in the process and the staff and design team will be setting up a prioritization of those items. Some of it will be based on what we feel is more important. Some will be based on timing. Like, for example, if we had extra money and we wanted to put in upgraded windows, we'd have to consider that before you put in, upgraded, aesthetics on the outside and so forth. And so we will put together a prioritized list and give that to the board for their feedback. There'll be time to do that. Some of these things, once that list of alternate bids is approved and we have a handle on where our budget's at, those items would be coming forward without board approval on the individual item, depending on the timing. But we would present the overall list and give you an opportunity to review it and give us feedback on that before that was finalized.
Okay. And I'm sure you'll provide sufficient information to allow us to form good opinions on them. For example, the pictures of anything that we might not be able to envision ourselves, like the stone arches and things like that.
Absolutely.
So just enough information so we can ask good questions. Okay. Anything further from the board? All right, seeing none, what is the appropriate motion then for this one?
There are three motions.
One motion, 3 parts.
Oh, one motion, 3 parts. I apologize. That we're recommending that the village board approve increasing the previously approved early bid amounts awards of $5,703,483 as follows. 1, authorize the village manager enter into a guaranteed maximum price of $27,942,917 to Riley Construction for the construction of a new police station. 2nd, it is further recommended that alternate number 5 for $29,376 be added to the GMP for a total GMP of $27,972,293. And 3rd, it is further recommended that the village board authorizes spending the owner's contingency for construction-related changes on the new police station and incrementally increase the guaranteed maximum price accordingly up to the same amount within the following limits, and authorizing individual expenditures over the $20,000 limit, but no more than $40,000 without board approval, subject to the finance director and village manager's approval. Individual expenditures from the owner's contingency above $40,000 will require board approval.
Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Glasgow, seconded by
Second.
trustee Tenalia. Any further questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Roll call on this one. Roll call.
Trustee Glasgow,
Yes.
Trustee Tenalia,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Sedor,
Yes.
Trustee Blackwood,
Yes.
Trustee Lebeds,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Well, again, thanks to all involved, including Chris, for all the great work in getting us to this point. I think we're right on time, and so we'd like to continue with that great track record and keep moving forward. So thanks to everyone involved.